More than 155,000 tech workers have been laid off in 2026 as of now. Last year it was 246,000, and a large chunk of those are software engineers. Not just at big tech, from early stage startups to large enterprises, everyone seems to be doing this. And I see engineers that are stressed and are wondering whether their job is safe and what's actually going on. And the most depressing part about this is that you're not sure what to do, and that's why I decided to make this video. As someone who has worked as senior and lead engineer in 15 companies, I want to share where the market is headed in my opinion, give you the 3 major reasons behind this, on why these layoffs are happening, and more importantly, what you can actually do to stay safe in this market. Let's start from the one that comes to your mind first when we're talking about layoffs, which is AI, of course. Some engineers say that AI just predicts the next token. It doesn't actually understand code, which is, yeah, technically true. And also it doesn't matter because it codes better than average mid-level developer, and almost every software engineer now uses AI for agentic development. I still remember when GitHub Copilot first came out, my tech lead sent me the demo article and told me, Hike, maybe we can use this to speed up the integration tests, because at the time I was working on unit and integration tests, and then there was an article that you can write a comment in the code and then it will generate prediction on what needs to be written in the code. So this seemed like a solution to what I was doing. Of course, it was not working perfectly, but I started trying. It was the demo, like beta launch. I remember what I was thinking is like, if there can be a chat window similar to how I'm chatting with ChatGPT, because at the time I was also using ChatGPT, if there can just be a right side panel where I can tell it what to do, this will be super useful, because otherwise I'm trying to explain it what to do in the comments. In most cases it doesn't work. I have to go then to either Google things or use ChatGPT at the time to paste my code there and then give suggestions on what to do. But then fast forward to just 1 year, the GitHub Copilot chat came out, and then they merged these products together. And then after that, fast forward to today, we have Cloud Code, we have Cursor, agents, skills, MCP, RAG systems, and it's crazy to think how far AI advanced in just a few years, which just goes to show how far it can advance in the next 5 years. Why I'm saying this is I figured out at this point exactly that this can be something that replaces junior and mid-level engineers, because at the time in the company, my main job at that season was just covering unit and integration tests for existing services. And if you picture a typical day from any average developer, you join sprint planning, you get assigned a few features and bugs, and then you pick the first one, get started with it. You read the Jira ticket description, requirements, and then get to work. And then what it looks like, especially nowadays, is you get these requirements, you figure out, even if it's a full stack task or feature or bug, you figure out what needs to be done. We have some component on the front end, it needs to be updated. We have to update the endpoint in some of the services to retrieve this. We have to update the database query to retrieve that. So you just do all the modifications here, test it, make sure it works, and then create the pull requests for these services. And then there is some senior engineer who reviews your code, and after a couple of maybe iterations, it goes to production. Especially nowadays, you most likely also delegate it to AI, right? So you get the Jira ticket description, you paste it to AI, ask it what needs to be done, then you just review everything and make sure it works. So that is the dangerous part about it, because AI is extremely good at recognizing and reproducing patterns, which is the thing that most mid-level developers are doing. It's a pattern. You get a Jira ticket as an input, you give PRs as an output, and then in the middle you're doing some of the things which can be automated. So if Cursor can do that work when you type the instructions, then what stops the company to build a custom solution that whenever you create a Jira ticket, you assign this to some AI agent, it produces the code, and then senior engineer reviews it. Yes, they have to do some additional work because they have to do the testing on your behalf, right? But still, it saves a lot of time and saves a lot of money for the company to just have less communication layers, senior engineers only who do this job and give the outputs, right? I've seen this firsthand as well. In one of my previous companies, they built an AI engineer, and whenever the task was pretty simple and well defined, you just assign these tasks from Jira board to that AI developer, and it creates the pull requests automatically, which then you just need to review. In most cases, if it was a pretty simple task and it was well defined, this AI developer also has context about your company, domain, and everything, similar to how you would train a junior developer if they get onboarded to a company. Then this company also trained that AI developer on the same data. And the good thing about machines is that it never forgets things, right? Compared to people who may either forget processes or they may just leave the organization and then you have to train another person. Then this became a policy for the company that they are not hiring mid-level developers anymore. And at that time they were also hiring new engineers, and I remember my engineering manager really liked one guy that was mid-level, but he was really like driven, hardworking person. He wanted to get him on board, but the company just says this is the policy. We either hire senior developers, or if we need a mid-level developer, then we have this AI developer who just does the job for as many as we want. Basically, it's scalable infinitely, right? Of course, we as engineers know that like this mid-level engineer, if he was really driven and hardworking, he would do a better job than AI. But this is just a policy that companies create, that if it's a mid-level or junior level developer, then you're not hiring them, you're only hiring seniors. I know that also brings a issue that what will happen in 5 years or 10 years from now, where will the senior engineers come from if companies are not hiring juniors? But to be honest, most startups, mid-level companies, they don't care about it at all, because they only have, let's say, especially startups, they have 18 months or 24 months runway. All they care about is making this product profitable. They don't care at all about what's going to happen in the market, what needs to be done so that we have seniors in the future. That is a job of big tech, not these small startups and medium companies, so they don't care about it. And you also have to focus on what you can do about it, which brings me to the point, which is how you protect yourself from these AI advancements. Now, this specific technique of delegating to AI only works if the ticket is specific enough with explicit definitions, and if you're just the developer in the company who takes the Jira tickets, clarifies a few things with management stakeholders, and then generates the code. So the developer or engineer who just picks the tickets and ships the code, that type of role is shrinking very fast. What you can do about this is get to the other side, which is how these tickets or these stories are created in the first place. If you get to senior level and beyond, you are the one making this communication with stakeholders, making architectural decisions, creating the blueprints, technical design, and then converting all of this into epics, user stories, and technical tasks. And then from the other side, you for now have, let's say, mid-level developers who take these tasks or user stories and implement them. And in the future, most of the companies will have their own AI developer trained on their own context. AI developer will just pick the tasks which are well defined, write the code and implementation, and then you will review it at the end, or someone else from the team will review it. But what helps you or what makes you safe from this type of thing is getting to the upper level and starting to build the blueprints, the tech designs, and making the architectural decisions instead of getting stuck at the code level and implementation only. Now let's talk about the second reason why these layoffs are happening, which in most areas actually might be a bigger reason for layoffs, especially if you're from US, Canada, or Europe, from regions where the market pays well to software engineers. So people keep pointing on that chart showing that layoffs are stabilizing, and then showing that the chart is kind of increasing for the last few months or weeks, whatever time that is. But if we zoom out, first of all, most of these jobs, the job postings might be fake, because companies are just reposting the job to show that the business is growing, or to just get some insights from senior engineers, like free advice on what to do with their product. And the second reason to that is that in many cases, these job postings are fully remote, which means why companies are doing this. So let's say you want to hire a mid-level software engineer in US. If you were to hire a US developer, in most cases you're looking to pay 120k to 180k for mid-level position depending on the area and the company. This is like we are thinking from business point of view. Now for a senior you would pay 200k plus up to like 500k depending on the seniority level and depending on also the area. Now guess what else companies can do and are doing now is you can hire a senior software engineer from India, China, Pakistan, or countries where the pay is lower, way lower than in US or Europe. Pay them something like 30k annually or up to 40k, like that's a huge money for them there. And here is what companies are doing. They are cutting costs with AI first whenever possible by delegating these small well-defined tasks to AI developer or AI. And then there is still a work that AI can't do, right? Because if AI could fully do everything, then you wouldn't need engineers. But for the remaining work, like whenever the ticket was assigned to the AI developer, it produced the pull requests. Someone needs to review these pull requests. That's just an example. It might be also like you hire a very good talent from India, Pakistan, and they also do the blueprinting, tech design, and all the decision making part. So instead of paying the US or Europe market rates, they just offshore it and get the same output for fraction of the cost. And it's not just individual hires, like just one software engineer in the team. I'm speaking with software engineers every day, and what I'm hearing is that companies are outsourcing entire departments to these countries. And especially those developers who are in these companies, they start wondering what if our entire department or team is then outsourced to one of these countries. So what you can do in this case, if you work in these high paid markets and the company you work with offshores these work to some other countries. First of all, you can target and work with better companies because they, like the best companies, understand that hiring top talent is expensive, like 2 or 3 times more expensive than average market rate. And they do it anyways because top engineers don't just cost money. They are ROI at the end. They make way more money for the company than they paid them annually. And a truly senior engineer doesn't just write the code or do the technical design. They also understand the business. They know why a decision matters and not just how to implement the solution. They can design entire solution from scratch, own the trade-offs, and bring real experience that saves a lot of infrastructure costs and also makes revenue for the business. So that's what you need to focus on to stay safe in this specific example. Get closer to the business, understand their domain and how you can help them either save infrastructure costs or make more revenue by shipping things that matter for the company and not just do your work and call it a day. In companies' internal jargon, this is called A player. Like for all departments, they have this term which is A player, like someone who doesn't need to be told what to do. You just hire them and they figure out what needs to be done to improve the product or improve the marketing if it's the marketing department, or improve the sales or whatever the person is working for, right? In this case of software engineers, it means hiring someone, not a junior or mid-level developer, and then onboard them, show them the processes, tell them what to do, improve their mistakes, and then do hand-holding for every little feature or bug, check the estimates. Like they don't want to do that. And especially if that's what they need to do, that's why we have AI nowadays, which is you delegate work to it, you tell it exactly what to do, because if you can frame it like exactly what you need from it, right, you will get a very good output from AI. They are looking for A players who don't need to be told much. Like you hire them, of course you onboard them properly, you tell them the business domain, how this works, but then after that they are looking for someone who can make decisions independently, grow the product, and suggest improvements without the stakeholders telling them what to do. And now let's get to the last reason. What if you are safe against AI and cheap offshore developers, but then suddenly you get laid off anyways? And sometimes when a layoff like this happens, if you were meeting the performance metrics, the deadlines and everything, all the KPIs, it sometimes feels unjustified where this person laid off if he was doing a good job. Maybe you were were doing a great job and you were hitting all these targets, but at the end they decide to cut you anyways from the team. The reason behind this is sometimes it might be just a business decision, nothing personal about you or nothing against you. You were doing a great job, but then the business maybe had a rough year, they cannot cover the expenses, maybe it's a startup and they didn't get the next funding from investors. So all these kinds of reasons, which are just business decisions. And whenever these kind of decisions are made, it's almost never made on the fly. They really thought about why they are doing this, and there is not much you can do in this situation, but there is something you can do to stay, let's say, safer, right, in this type of situations. So I'll tell you a quick story from one of my other roles I worked, which was an electricity company across Europe. So first they decided to have multiple apps because they have different regions. They have, let's say, Norway, they have Finland, they have other regions they are serving. So they decided to have one app per region and one team per app to serve all these services and build the features, right? That's how it was going on. And I was part of the Norwegian region application. At the end, it was just a business decision that why we are paying to all these different teams, having multiple apps for each region when we can just have a centralized application. We can keep just one of the teams, which will be a core team that serves this app and the entire system, and we just cut all the other engineering teams, right? Honestly, it was a smart decision. Looking back at what the company did, it was a smart decision for them. Like if I was the decision makers in this company, I would make that decision like way back than when they made. But the other thing here is at this time, during this time when I was working at this role, is I was advancing my skills. I also took another side role because this was fully remote, so I could do more than 2 or 3 roles if my time allowed. And at this time I was doing 2 roles, plus I was leveling up in my skills always. So when this layoff happened, the guys who were the most upset were those engineers or team members who put all their efforts and time into this project only, and they didn't take any time for their personal development, or they didn't have any backups. So this time I was doing 2 roles to just pay my mortgage faster, and yeah, I got laid off from one of them. I still have this other one going, so it's at least a baseline for me. And even if I didn't have that, I was still leveling up and putting my skills first over this company and position I was working on, because I didn't care more about that than my own skills and development. So what happened is I very quickly found another role. If this was like my only role, I would find just my next role. And in this case, I just found my next second role to fill this gap. So what you can do in this situation is always put your skills development first over any project or any company you're working for, because most likely will end the partnership with the company you're working for. You most likely won't work there for the next 20 or 30 years. The thing that stays with you is the skills that you gathered, and most importantly, transferable skills, not the skills that you have only about the domain of your company, because that's not helpful. Sometimes I see engineers who are living very specific domains like government projects or even big tech like Meta, and they are just using their internal tools, their internal abstractions on top of these technologies that we use. So it's not transferable in that case. When you leave the project, you can't pitch that to some other company to hire you because of these skills, because it's not transferable. So always put your skills first, make sure to level up faster to get senior and beyond, so that you stay safe against AI layoffs, and get closer to business understanding and business domain to also stay safe against offshore developers. Hope this helps, and see you in the next one.